Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Climb Finance Show. My name is Tian Led. Thanks for joining. Tonight, we're going to review the week of financial performance. It has been a really interesting week, primarily because the conflict in the Middle East is raging on. So we're going to do a few things tonight. Firstly, I want to talk about US Treasury yields because, as we all know, US Treasury data is really the most important thing, or close to the most important thing in the US economy. This is a finance show. I'm not going to talk too much about the war, but if you look here, we're looking at the 10-year Treasury yield. We're looking at a 3-month chart here. As just last week, the Treasury yield hit just over 5%. First time that's happened in 20 years or so, just since the financial crisis. But if we zoom in, you'll see that it actually topped out and is slightly declining for the first time. Well, not for the first time, but it is declining. And is this indicative of a long-term trend? Maybe, maybe not. But what happened on this day when it peaked? Interestingly enough, US President Biden gave a speech to the American people, to the world, saying the U.S. leadership holds the world together in a bid for Ukraine and Israel funds. Launched a new mission to convince people on Thursday they should spend billions in supporting Israel and Ukraine in their wars. American leadership is what holds the world together. American allies are what keep us, America, safe. Without getting too much into the war, he's asking for $100 billion in new spending, $60 billion for Ukraine, $14 for Israel, $10 billion for humanitarian aid, some for the border security, and $7 billion for the Indo-Pacific region, primarily Taiwan, against the threat of China. So this is a huge spending bill, and it's interesting that the 10-year Treasury rate seems to top out here, possibly because $100 billion will need to be financed, usually by the U.S. Treasury. Maybe the Federal Reserve will need to stop raising rates and instead lower rates, which is the reason why the yield would come down, interest rates would come down. So let's look at the impact that this potential bill, the $100 billion spending package, the aid package, is having on other markets. If we take a look here at the S&P 500 on October 19th, the stock market is actually down, which surprises me because if, let's say, easy monetary policy is going to come back into play, you would expect it to be up. Interesting enough, if we take a look at gold since October 19th, it's up slightly, not a great amount. It is doing great since the beginning of October, since the war happened. You can check out my last video as to why that is occurring. But most interesting is what is occurring with Bitcoin over the last week. You can tell by this chart over the last year, it has surged in the last month. Take a look at the 3 months, it has surged. And most interesting, October 19th, the date that US Treasury yield has reached their highest in 20 years and are now coming down. The date that Biden announced the $100 billion aid package for Israel, Ukraine, Indo-Pacific, and humanitarian aid. Bitcoin is dominating. It is dominating headlines. It is in its highest price in quite some time, since April of 2022. I like this article from CNN, if it wants to load for us here. Why Bitcoin is Surging Again by David Goldman. First and foremost, he talks about how it topped 35,000 the first time since May 2022, doubled in value this year. First and foremost, there was a huge amount of Bitcoin ETF speculation this week. The latest round of excitement came as the BlackRock exchange-traded fund for Bitcoin appeared on a list controlled by the DTCC, a NASDAQ-operated clearinghouse for stocks and ETFs. If a Bitcoin ETF is approved, it would allow everyday investors to own a piece of Bitcoin in their investment portfolio without having to actually own it in their own Bitcoin wallet. It is known as a huge driver for price increases. However, it was kind of odd because, without getting too much into this, it turned out that this BlackRock ticker for the ETF had already been listed for months, but the price is still really high. So anyway, rapid rises are exaggerated, et cetera, et cetera. However, I like this portion here. There's another reason why Bitcoin may be rising, and that is fear. People turn to it in uncertain times. It's dubbed digital gold. And anyway, if this $100 billion beat package does go through, it could signal a wider global conflict in which investors could turn to gold and Bitcoin. And it's interesting to see where Treasury yields go from here in the face of global conflict. I hope global conflict does not happen. It would be shame. I pray for the innocent people of Palestine and Israel. But this is the finance show, and we're just digesting the data. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in here. Anyway, thanks for watching. That's all for today. Have a great night.